Floating wind technologies, and I use plural because there are many variations of these technologies, are maturing at quite a fast pace. They are advancing really at quite a fast pace, especially over the past decade. But I would say they are not yet as mature, they're not yet as mainstream, if you will, as onshore wind is, or even our fixed bottom cousins. But because we are on the verge of commercialization, and I hope and I expect to see commercialization be reached by the end of the decade and the first gigawatt projects, I think we will reach that maturity phase by the end of the decade. But we've already have seen signs of the technology's effectiveness, both on the benefit to the environment. I mentioned that you can have a potential positive environmental externality, but also on the energy output. And I mentioned the capacity factor. We have about 60% onshore, 30, solar 15 to 20. So there's a big gap there, and I still believe that there is still plenty of room for improvement. And so when it comes to floating wind, I would bet long.
Okay. Just for curiosity, the Koreans, because you had it in one of your slides, the Koreans, how far ahead it is compared to us?
Well, us meaning Greece, because that's very much ahead.
Greece, but Europeans.
European. So the Koreans, because they mostly have deep waters, they are very aggressively pursuing policies for floating, and they are cutting off red tape and bureaucracy. So if I had to bet, I would say that the first gigawatt plus project would be in Korea. So in our case, there are several challenges. I don't know where to start. I think perhaps the most important is the costs, and especially now with persistent inflation, with all these sort of bottlenecks and the high cost of capital, I think it makes our life harder. So costs is one, and I think we will be able to drive down costs when we scale up. Scale is going to be a big advantage for us, and when we move innovation away from the wind turbine, which it's been innovating a lot, but also to the floater and other parts. But beyond that, around floating wind, a whole new ecosystem is being built. And there are many challenges there that also obviously create bottlenecks for us. So for example, there is a weak port infrastructure, which is important. We don't have enough shipping vessels to transport the floaters to the locations. We have a shortage of powerful cranes to lift this very heavy steel structure. And even some of the components, because we have a deficit in the components, we have to order them from China and Asia and elsewhere, and so on and so forth. So we are in a difficult situation, but I think if we are going to walk the walk and reach net zero, as we have said, we need renewables, and honestly, floating offshore wind is an unlimited, untapped resource, and it will be a game changer. And I think, with all honesty, now I'm in floating wind, but with all honesty, I think the potential is huge, the upside is huge, and the opportunity is now.
Okay, let's assume that leftai υπάρχουν. We have the money. Okay.
That's a good assumption.
That's no problem about that.
Yeah.
Do you believe that it's easy to install 1 megawatt of FOW in Greece tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow it is hard, because these things take time, and there is a lot of bureaucracy. And even if we wanted, to do that, we, as I mentioned, the supply and the other bottlenecks, we, for example, need the energy grid.
Yeah.
So
no
we need, even
yeah.
if we can place them on the water, we need the cable to transport
exactly.
the energy. So it's the whole ecosystem,
exactly.
okay, that we have to deal with.
Exactly.
And so let me think, where can I start?
You have 5 minutes.
So I think let me start from the European level, because some of the challenges are common. Sweden indeed is ahead of the curve, and very decisively pursuing green energy and renewable energy. So the current national strategies in Europe I think, are outdated because we are facing a new landscape, different circumstances. We face higher interest rate, higher cost of capital, a persistent inflation, and as I mentioned, multiple supply chain bottlenecks. And it's very indicative that last month there was a big auction in the UK for offshore wind. And you know how many bids it received? It received 0 bids, 0. And similar results were seen in Germany and Spain, which is a huge blow for the renewable strategy. So for some reason, maybe political, maybe lobbying, maybe others, some governments are backtracking from renewables, and that is very dangerous. But I think going forward, what we must do, and the Greek government has to do, is to take a more holistic approach in terms of designing a strategy. It has to, of course, address the pricing scheme, because at the end of the day, for a project to go forward, it must be financially viable, so that is very important. But we need to go beyond the pricing scheme. We need to address those challenges like the energy grid, the red tape, easing the permitting phase, which in Greece we always have problems with that, even support our port infrastructure and other kinds of infrastructure. So yes, pricing is important, but we need a more holistic national strategy.